Hello and welcome back to the Gipton War Room, also known as my garage, for my third bolt action battle report. I had hoped to do this in July, but work, family and holiday commitments obviously came first. So tonight we're back in Normandy, France. It's British versus German. It's June 1944 and it's the clash at La Ferme, Barbie. Okay, first of all, just like to start by saying a big thank you to all those who've subscribed or commented on my previous videos. Again, it's a learning process as I go, but it is greatly appreciated. The table for tonight then is obviously 6B before table. Again, all the terrain has been scratch built by myself using carpet roads, teddy bear for cornfields. The first time I've used these. These were quite light when I bought them, but I've sprayed them with like a sandy colour, and then obviously sprayed darker lines down just to give the appearance of cornfields. The bocage, again, that's made using polystyrene and rubberized horsehair. All the buildings are scratch built by myself using foam card, balsa wood, plastic card. I don't have a 3D printer, and again I do quite enjoy old school scratch building of terrain. In fact, I probably do more scratch building of terrain and making stuff than I do of actually gaming. Right, just a quick one in relation to the terrain features. Obviously bocage, it blocks line of sight and counts as hard cover. The woods, again, obviously they block line of sight, but a soft cover. The cornfields, they are soft cover, again don't block line of sight. Some of the smaller trees that you'll see on here, again, they don't block line of sight, they're just there for the aesthetics. The low walls at the back of the farm, again, that's meant to be an orchard. Again, the walls don't block line of sight, but they will give hard cover if you're firing through. Again, hard cover with the buildings. The farm buildings, the compound, the wall itself, again, that's quite high. There is no firing over that. Windows, as per the rules, two people can fire from, or two figures can fire from each window. The lichen that you can see just dotted around, again, that doesn't block line of sight. Again, it's a bit of an aesthetic just to cover up the edges of the road, but it does count as soft cover. In relation to the bocage, again, just to clarify, it's hard cover unless, of course, you're up to within 1 inch of it, then you can see through and shoot. Obviously, if you're some distance away, you can't be shot at because it blocks line of sight. Okay, this encounter is loosely based on the fighting in June 1944 around the areas of Tilly, Fontenay, Chaux, etc. The British forces in this game are pushing on from capturing the village of Le Grand Venture, and they meet head on at the crossroads of La Ferme Barbie, a collection of German units hastily put together and thrown into counter-attack the advancing British. The Germans will deploy half their units up to 12 inches from the far end of the table. They will be subject obviously to a bombardment, and the British and the remaining German forces then enter on turn one. Again, the British advancing from this end of the table towards the crossroads and the La Ferme Barbie. Okay, victory points. You'll get 1 point for every enemy unit that's either destroyed or routed. You'll get 1 point for every unit that you have in any one of the 3 cornfields or in either of the 2 woods, and you'll also get 2 points for any unit that you have occupying any of the buildings that are on the table. Let's have a look at the forces then. The German force is led by Lieutenant Schiefer and a runner. Then there are 3 veteran 10-man grenadier squads led by 1 SMG sergeant. They have 1 LMG each, and 2 of the units actually have 2 Panzerfausts. They are transported in 3 Hanomag 251s. Then there is a medium mortar and spotter. There is a MG42 medium machine gun. And finally, there is a Panzer Mark V Panther. The British forces are led by Lieutenant Graham and a radio operator. Then there are 4 regular rifle squads led by NCOs armed with a Sten. Each squad has a light machine gun team. 3 of the squads are 8-man sections, and 1 of the squads is a 10-man section. Then we have a Piat team, medium mortar with spotter, 6-pounder anti-tank gun, a Bren carrier, and 3 Sherman 75s, one of which is a 17-pounder Firefly. Okay, the Germans deployed 2 Hanomags, each containing 2 infantry sections, and the medium mortar with the spotter just in the top of the little barn window there. They came under, obviously, the pre-bombardment, resulted in the mortar receiving 2 pins, the Hanomag 2 pins, the infantry section inside 1 pin, and again the left Hanomag 1 pin, and the infantry section inside 2 pins. Right, on to turn 1. Okay, turn 1. The first dice out of the bag was German. The Hanomag passed its order test, lost its pin, and advanced 9 inches across the cornfield. German dice again, and the second Hanomag passed its order test, dropped down to 1 pin, and advanced a double move on the roads, turning 90 degrees to pull in behind the farm. First British dice, and the 6-pounder advances onto the board, taking cover behind the rubble of the building with a good line of sight all the way down the road. A British die, and the Sherman advances at speed up to the cornfield. Another British die, and another Sherman advances at speed up to the bocage with a clear line of fire over the cornfield. British die again, and the mortar team advance on to set up in the garden of the damaged cottage, with the spotter taking up position inside, again with a good field of view. Another British die, and the infantry section runs up on the left flank, joining the Sherman tank. Okay, German die. The mortar crew passed its order test with double 1, lost all its pins, fired at the British infantry unit but missed, needing a 5 on the next turn. German dice. The infantry section in the Hanomag passes its morale test, loses its pin, and advance from the Hanomag, advancing towards the courtyard of the farm. German dice, and a Hanomag containing another infantry section runs onto the board, pushing right up to the road at the side of the barn. British dice, and the Bren carrier runs onto the table. German dice, and Lieutenant Schiefer runs onto the table. British die, and First Lieutenant Graham exits the Bren carrier, taking up a command position between his troops on the left flank. British dice, and the Piat section run like hell up the road. German dice, and the MG42 section run onto the board. German dice, and the infantry section in the Hanomag passes its order test, rallies, and loses all its pins. British dice, and the infantry section on the right flank runs up to the bocage line. German dice, and the infantry section in the Hanomag can't dismount because it moved at full speed. It run in its turn, so the unit goes down. British dice, and another infantry section runs on up to the bocage. British dice again, and another infantry section runs on and joins with the 2 sections at the bocage line with the Sherman. Final British dice, and the Firefly advances onto the left flank. Final die is German, and the Panther advances as fast as it can down to the crossroads near the farm, stopping short just behind its own troops. A fearless manoeuvre. Right, so the end of turn 1, and the British are quite congested on their start line. whereas the Germans have shown some great vigour, and they're pushing into the centre towards the farm on the right and left flanks. On to turn 2. Okay, the start of turn 2, and the first dice was British. So Lieutenant Graham pulled an odd die, issued a snap 2. He himself advanced up to the hedge. He ordered the rifle section to run around the side of the cornfield, and he ordered the mortar to fire at the German section outside La Ferme Barbie, and then missed, needing a 5 next turn. German die, and the rifle section that came under mortar fire run into the farm building, but more importantly, they clear a line of sight for the Panther to fire. The next dice out is British, and the 6-pounder sees the Panther thundering down the road and fires at long range, needing a 4. It's a hit. The 6-pounder penetrates on a 5. The Panther's armour is a 10, needs a 6 to penetrate, and it doesn't, but it's a pin on the Panther. German dice, and the Hanomag passed its order test, lost its pin, and advanced along the road, pivoting at the end to position itself covering the wood. British die, and the Sherman advances through the cornfield towards the wood. German die, and the Hanomag advances from the cornfield, positions itself behind the woods of the orchard to the rear of the farm. British die, and the Piat team embark on a suicidal run up the road towards the Panther. German dice, and the rifle section in the Hanomag dismount and advance into the orchard at the back of the farm. German dice, and the Hanomag advances up to the bocage to cover the wood and the cornfield. British dice, and the Bren carrier dashes across the road into the cornfield before the Panther can fire. German dice, and the rifle section dismount the Hanomag, go through the bocage and just enter the edge of the wood. Still can't see the British or shoot at them yet though this turn. German dice, and Lieutenant Schiefer orders a snap 2, ordering the machine gun unit to run up to the end of the road where the hedge is, and he orders the mortar team to fire at the Piat section advancing up the road, needing a 6. Miss. British die, and the Firefly advances just behind the hedge, ready to possibly pull out and attack the Panther next turn. British dice, and the Sherman fires a 75mm HE round at the building with the spotter, needing a 4. It's a hit. Okay, HE against the building for the Sherman 75 gets D3 hits. Only 1. So it's a penetration of +1. He's a veteran, needing no, but a pin on the spotter. British dice, and the rifle section crosses the bocage and into the cornfield. German die, and the Panther passed its order test and fires back at the 6-pounder down the road, needing a 6. Miss. The last 2 dice were British, and both infantry sections advanced over the bocage into the cornfield in support of the Sherman tank. Right, so the end of turn 2, and the British are still advancing steadily in a line, again towards the farmhouse. The Germans are also slowly starting to push forward, occupying the orchard, getting Hanomags covering the road. The Panther is just sitting in the middle of the junction, as well as on the right flank of the Germans. They are now starting to infiltrate the wood. On to turn 3. So, start of turn 3, and the first die is British, and the 6-pounder fires again at the Panther, needing a 4. It's a hit, as before, needs a 6 to penetrate. It's a 5, it's a glancing hit. Rolling to damage the Panther. That's a 1, that's a crew stunned and 2 pin markers. And the vehicle goes down for the remainder of this turn. That could be crucial. German die, and Lieutenant Schiefer draws a command die, orders a snap 2, ordering the machine gun team to take up position behind the wall, again covering the cornfield. The mortar team passes its order test and fires again onto the Piat team advancing up the road, this time needing a 5. It's a hit. Rolling to damage on the Piat team, anything but 1s. Unit destroyed. British dice. The Firefly breaks cover onto the road and takes a shot at the Panther, needing a 4 for moved. It's a hit. Roll to penetrate. The Firefly needs a 3 or more. No, it's a glancing hit. So with no penetration, the Panther's now up to 3 pins. That could still be crucial. German dice, and the infantry section advanced into the wood and opened fire on the British infantry advancing in the open. However, the British went down, meaning the Germans needed 6s and 7s with their die rolls, and there were no hits. German die, and the Hanomag goes onto ambush, covering the cornfield. Another German die, and another Hanomag goes onto ambush, this time covering the small wood. British dice, and Lieutenant Graham advances across the road using the Sherman as cover to try and join his units on the right flank. German dice, and the unit in the barn go down for added protection. German dice, and another Hanomag goes onto ambush, covering the orchard. British dice, and the spotter sees the German machine gun team taking up position in the garden to the rear of the barn and calls in the mortar strike, needing 6s. It's a miss, but 5 next turn. British dice, and the Sherman fires a HE round at the building again, aiming for the spotter, needing a 4. That's a hit. D3 hits. That's 3 hits. Okay, +1 penetration. It's a veteran, needing 4s. Yep, spotter's dead, the mortar's blind. German dice, and the infantry section, fearing an onslaught of tanks and infantry coming through the woods, advance behind the farm mount. German dice, and the infantry section that was in the orchard pull back for fear of the oncoming onslaught of infantry and tanks through the cornfield. They take cover behind the farm. The remaining 4 dice are British. The 3 infantry sections all advance up to the bocage on the light wood, carefully keeping out of sight of the Hanomags. The Sherman advances into the open and takes a shot at the Hanomag through the orchard, needing a 6 for long range and hard cover. It's a hit. Sherman has a +5 against the defence 7 of the Hanomag. Does it penetrate? Yes, it does. Only a glancing hit though. Rolling for damage. Again, that's a crew stunned and an additional pin marker, and it goes down. As we come to the end of turn 3, the British are now starting to apply some pressure to the right flank, forcing the Germans to retire for cover. They've put some hits on the Hanomag, took out the German spotter, and again pinned the Panther in place. All to play for the next turn, on to turn 4. Start of turn 4 on the first dice, British, and the Firefly shoots again at the Panther, this time needing a 3. It's a miss. German dice, and the Panther passes its morale test with the assistance of Lieutenant Schiefer and fires back at the Firefly, needing a 5. It's a miss. British dice, and the mortar team fire again at the German medium machine gun team, this time needing 5s. It's a miss, but 4 next time. British dice, and the rifle section advance into the cornfield. British die, and the Sherman on the left flank pivots and advance out from behind the bocage. German dice, and the unit in the farmhouse move to the upper floor and fire at point blank range a Panzerfaust from the window at the advancing Sherman, needing only a 3. The Panzerfaust fires at the unsuspecting Sherman, and it's a hit, rolling to damage, needing a 3 or more. No, it's a glancing hit. The Sherman crew breathe a sigh of relief and escape with just 1 pin. German dice, and the machine gun team opened up on the British in the cornfield, killing 3 and putting a pin on the unit. German dice, and the rifle section in the wood advanced into the cornfield and opened fire on the British infantry. Didn't score any kills, but put another pin on the unit. British die. The Sherman passed its order test, fired its main gun at the Hanomag, hit it, caused 2 more pins, caused the fire, but the crew didn't fail its morale, so it's up to 4 pins now. And then the bow machine gun opened fire on the infantry inside the barn, and again scored a hit, killed 1, and put a pin on that unit. German dice, and the Hanomag rallied, passed its test, rolled a 6, and removed all its pins. British die, and the infantry section behind the bocage fires at the Germans in the barn. No hits are scored, well, no kills are scored, but there is a hit with an additional pin on the unit. German die, and the Hanomag pivots and advances up the road. British dice, and the rifle section opens up onto the barn, this time killing 3 Germans and adding an additional pin marker. British dice, and Lieutenant Graham advances into the cornfield. British die, and the Bren carrier reverses and then pivots to move across the cornfield in the next turn. German die, and Lieutenant Schiefer runs into the small barn. German dice, and the mortar team failed its order test. It foobarred, but only panicked and went down. German die, and the Hanomag goes back on ambush, covering the wood. British dice, and the rifle section go down, waiting for the Sherman to deal with those Hanomags before they advance. German dice, and the rifle section pull back behind the bocage into the cornfield, covering the open road to the barn. Final dies British, and the 6-pounder goes onto ambush, but can't fire because the Sherman's in the way. Well, that's the end of turn 4, and it's beginning to be turning into a bit of a slogging match, with no side really yet gaining the upper hand. All to play for in turn 5. Start turn 5, and the first die is British, and the Firefly fires again at the Panther, needing a 3. It's a hit, rolling to penetrate. Oh, it does, rolling for damage. And it's knocked out. The Panther's gone. That could be critical. The Panther burns on the crossroads. British die, and the mortar fired at the German machine gun, this time striking, killing 2 crew and putting D3 pins on. The single crewman passed his morale, only 1 to hit on the next turn though. German dice, and the Hanomag advanced into the cornfield, opened fire on the British, who went down, and no hits were caused. Another German die, and the rifle section pour fire into the British in the cornfield. No casualties are caused, but they do hit and put another pin on the unit. British dice, and the Sherman advances along the edge of the cornfield and fires with its turret machine gun only into the Germans in the cornfield, hitting them, causing 1 casualty and putting a pin on the unit. German dice, and the unit in the farm go down, making them a hard target to dislodge with only 2 turns remaining. British die, and the Sherman crashes through the orchard at the back of the farm, opening fire on the Hanomag. Doesn't cause any damage, but puts a pin on the vehicle. British dice, and Lieutenant Graham orders a snap to, ordering both rifle sections to open fire on the farmhouse, peppering the windows and walls. No hits are caused, well, no kills are caused, but a hit is caused, needing 7s and an extra pin on the unit. That German unit is now up to 4 pins inside the farm. German dice, and the Hanomag passes its order test, loses its pin, and reverses into the cornfield away from the advancing Sherman. British die, and the Bren carrier advances across the cornfield. German dice, and the mortar team passed its order test and advanced towards the barn. German dice, and the Hanomag on the extreme left flank performs a few pivot manoeuvres and reverses itself back into the cornfield, again away from the advancing Sherman. British dice, and with the threat of the Hanomag gone, the infantry on the right flank now advance into the woods, trying to flank the farm building. German dice, and the single remaining machine gunner tried to rally, failed even with Lieutenant Schiefer close by, and goes down. German dice, and Lieutenant Schiefer advances to the top floor of the barn to survey the battlefield for himself. British die, and the 6-pounder goes onto ambush. Final die is German, and the rifle section go down behind the bocage, securing their position in the cornfield. Well, that's the end of turn 5, and the British are making steady, if not slow, progress. But again, in turn 6, it's all going to come down to points and who controls what objectives. Start of turn 6, and the first die is German, and the rifle section in the farm go down, securing the objective. British die, and the Sherman advances into the woods, pivots, shoots at the Germans in the field, who go down, causing 1 hit but no casualties, putting an extra pin on the unit. German dice, and Lieutenant Schiefer orders a snap to, ordering the mortar team to advance into the barn. The single medium machine gunner passes his order test, and again also advances into the barn, saving him from probably certain destruction from the mortar. Up to 2 pins, but that's 3 units now inside the barn for the Germans. British die, and the rifle section in the cornfield go down, making themselves a hard target and trying to secure their part of the cornfield. British die, and the Sherman Firefly advances up the road, flanking the Hanomag, fires at it with its main gun, but misses. British dice, and the Sherman advances to point blank with the Hanomag, fires its main gun and hull machine gun, all miss. British die, and Lieutenant Graham orders a snap to, ordering both rifle sections to fire at the Germans in the farm. There were no casualties, but hit is scored, and that unit in the farm is now up to 5 pins, but they are not being dislodged from the farm. British dice, and the Bren carrier advances, adding its weight of fire to the Germans in the farm, but no hits. The next 3 dice were all German, and again the Hanomag reversed away from the Sherman. The Hanomag in the middle of the cornfield went onto ambush, and the rifle section went down, all securing their positions within the cornfield. British die, and the rifle section in the wood also opened fire on the Germans in the farmhouse, but caused no hits. German dice, and the Hanomag in the cornfield opens fire on the British, but causes no hits. The final 2 dice are British. The mortar fired on the Germans in the cornfield and missed, and the 6-pounder again went on to ambush. And with that, the battle comes to an end. Well, the game ends with a German victory, 13 points to 10. The breakdown for the British: they got 2 points for the spotter in the house, 2 points for obviously a unit each in the flanking woods, and 5 points for the units that they have in the cornfields, and 1 point for the destroyed German Panther. The Germans, however, again, the tactic of pushing units into the buildings and clinging on gave them 8 points. They had no units in the woods, but again they had 5 points for units in the cornfields, and they had of course destroyed the British Piat team, again giving them a total of 13. So again, a good game, hard fought. Thank you for watching. I do hope to put another game on again, probably October, November. Again, work and family commitments obviously come first. But again, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, I'm sure I've made mistakes, but happy for any comments and critique that you want to make. Goodbye.